As I discussed in a couple of videos ago about the movie Eugene Onegin, the central character being portrayed by Ralph Fiennes, um, it was obviously a really beautiful, really kind of elegant sort of portrayal of this sort of character, this aristocrat, Eugene Onegin, who's very disillusioned and seems to hate society. And it's based on the Russian poem by Alexander Pushkin. And I think Ralph Fiennes portrays, I think, that really deep bitterness of this character, but also his kind of there's a quality of him being a little bit of an outsider as well. Like his views on marriage are very strange. He rejects this woman Tatiana's love because he doesn't want the monotony, the responsibility, the adultery, all of the things having to do with marriage. He doesn't want to have anything to do with, right? And I was just, I was comparing it today. I was thinking more about that movie, and I was comparing it to this other movie that I saw that was this modernized version of Hamlet, in which Ethan Hawke stars as Hamlet. It's just like there's almost no comparison because it's like night and day for me, because I think that the Hamlet is like one of those really cheesy examples you see where they'll take a story and modernize and also Americanize it way too much, almost to a pulp, like to the extent that it can kind of completely ruins the entire meaning or the purpose of the story, right? And it's like, I think that Ethan Hawke sort of with this character made the mistake that I imagine that a lot of actors, or maybe he would make with this character, which is sort of turning the Hamlet into like if you were to imagine, for example, if a goth teenager living in the United States, like an American goth teenager, right, were to buy a time machine and take a time machine back to the 14th century and live among dukes and kings and queens, right? There's a lack of sort of regality. I think there's a certain magnetism. I think that Hamlet, despite all of his imperfections, despite all of his problems, needs to have, that is very era specific. It's very historically specific. It's very hard to capture that when you're trying to make it. You're trying to sort of meld it into American culture. It's almost impossible. I mean, that's just my opinion. Whereas I think what I loved about Eugene Onegin is that it doesn't sort of modernize the story in any way, in that sort of typically kind of pretentious way. It's very true to the spirit, whereas I think that if that story were modernized or Americanized, right, it might sort of, I almost imagine that it would kind of turn into this kind of postmodern story about, life having no purpose and having no meaning. I mean, particularly in regards to the protagonist, who has this deep loathing for the world around him, right, for society, right. So the story might indeed lose a lot of that nuance, a lot of that complexity that you would see if you were to just stick true to the Russian culture, right? But it does also make me think about an experiment, though, that I've been trying recently on something called Sora AI, where I've been depicting the world of my own book series. And in my own book series, there's two different factions, there's two different sides, right? There's that are all in American society, right? There's the sort of Italian Renaissance revival kind of movement that the character Dmitry Sokolov, a poet, a painter, is bringing back, right? And you can even see that in all the architecture in America looks like this sort of Italian Renaissance kind of architecture, but it's melded in with this futuristic American culture in year 2400, right? And I wanted to find a way of sort of combining those two things elegantly without making it this sort of hodgepodge of different elements and different things, And I've been working. It's a little tricky, but I've been working at it. I've been creating images that have been depicting this sort of style. Of the angels, the restaurants, the moon, the vehicles flying overhead. I even did one of the three muses, sort of incorporated that kind of mythology into it, which is maybe kind of a weird choice, but I'm just fiddling around with it. You know, um, but I think that there is. I think one of the reasons why, at least in the novel, it does not sort of come across as this sort of hodgepodge of different cultures, I would say, is because it's like I said, is that the spirit of that time, the much older time, is really being revived. Rather, it's not necessarily being artificially forced into it, while they're sort of continuing to kind of indulge in these kinds of corrupt practices. At least not on Dimitri's side, right? And science is no longer being politicized either. So that's also the reason why the futuristic or the technological advancements of this world, I think, don't seem to they don't sort of are not they don't look awkward when you try to combine them with these really old traditions and these sort of this beautiful quality that you see. And I think that that's kind of an important thing that I've always been trying to keep in mind.